Welcome to our deep dive into the world of trade wars. In today's globalized economy, countries are more interconnected than ever before. But what happens when these connections are disrupted by political or economic disputes? Trade wars occur when nations impose tariffs or other barriers on each other's goods, aiming to protect their own industries or retaliate against perceived unfair practices. This video will guide you through the causes, mechanisms, and far-reaching impacts of trade wars, helping you understand why these conflicts matter to everyone, from governments to everyday consumers. Trade war is a situation where countries impose tariffs or other trade barriers on each other in a tit-for-tat manner. These actions are usually meant to protect domestic industries or respond to unfair trade practices. However, trade wars can quickly escalate, leading to a cycle of retaliation that disrupts international commerce. Understanding the basic definition of a trade war is essential before we explore its broader consequences. Let's break down how these conflicts typically begin and why they can be so challenging to resolve. Trade wars often start due to disagreements over trade balances, intellectual property rights, or market access. Sometimes a country may feel that its industries are being harmed by cheap imports or unfair subsidies provided by another nation. In other cases, political tensions or strategic interests can trigger trade disputes. These underlying causes set the stage for the imposition of tariffs or other barriers, which can quickly spiral into a full-blown trade war. Understanding these root causes is key to grasping why trade wars erupt and persist. Tariffs are taxes imposed on imported goods, making them more expensive for consumers. Governments use tariffs as a tool to protect domestic industries from foreign competition. While tariffs can provide short-term relief to local businesses, they often lead to higher prices for consumers and can provoke retaliatory measures from other countries. This back and forth can escalate tensions and disrupt global supply chains, affecting businesses and consumers worldwide. One country imposes tariffs, the targeted nation often responds with its own set of tariffs or trade barriers. This cycle of retaliation can quickly escalate, turning a minor dispute into a full-scale trade war. As each side raises the stakes, the costs and risks for businesses and consumers increase. Escalation can also strain diplomatic relations, making it harder to find a peaceful resolution. The longer a trade war lasts, the more damage it can inflict on the global economy. Trade wars disrupt global supply chains by making it more expensive and complicated to move goods across borders. Companies that rely on international suppliers may face delays, increased costs, or even shortages of critical components. These disruptions can ripple through entire industries, affecting everything from electronics to automobiles. As supply chains become less efficient, businesses may be forced to pass on higher costs to consumers or seek alternative suppliers, which can take time and resources. One of the most immediate impacts of trade wars is felt by consumers. As tariffs raise the cost of imported goods, prices for everyday items like electronics, clothing, and food can increase. This means that consumers may have to pay more or settle for fewer choices. Over time, higher prices can reduce purchasing power and lower overall demand, which can slow economic growth. Understanding how trade wars affect consumers helps illustrate why these conflicts are so significant. Trade wars create uncertainty for businesses, making it difficult to plan for the future. Companies may hesitate to invest in new projects, expand operations, or hire additional workers if they are unsure about future trade policies. This uncertainty can slow economic growth and reduce job opportunities. Businesses may also need to spend more on legal and compliance costs to navigate changing regulations, further straining their resources. Trade wars can have mixed effects on employment. While some domestic industries may benefit from reduced competition, others that rely on exports or imported materials may suffer. Job losses can occur in sectors hit by retaliatory tariffs or supply chain disruptions. On the other hand, protected industries may see short-term job gains. The overall impact on employment depends on the structure of the economy and the duration of the trade conflict. Agriculture is often one of the hardest-hit sectors in a trade war. Many countries target agricultural products for retaliation because they are politically sensitive and widely traded. Farmers may face falling prices, lost export markets, and increased competition at home. These challenges can threaten the livelihoods of rural communities and lead to calls for government support or subsidies. Manufacturing industries are also vulnerable to trade wars, especially those that depend on imported raw materials or export a significant portion of their products. Tariffs can increase production costs and make goods less competitive in global markets. Companies may be forced to cut jobs, delay investments, or relocate operations to avoid tariffs. These adjustments can have lasting effects on the manufacturing sector's growth and competitiveness. Technology companies are often at the center of trade disputes, especially when issues like intellectual property and market access are involved. Restrictions on technology transfers, export controls, and tariffs on tech products can disrupt innovation and global collaboration. These measures can slow the pace of technological advancement and limit consumer access to the latest products. Financial markets often react strongly to news of trade wars. Stock prices can fluctuate as investors assess the potential impact on corporate profits and economic growth. Currency values may also shift, affecting the cost of imports and exports. Uncertainty in financial markets can make it harder for businesses and consumers to plan for the future, amplifying the negative effects of trade conflicts. Trade wars can slow global economic growth by reducing trade volumes and increasing uncertainty. As countries impose barriers, international commerce becomes less efficient, leading to lower investment and weaker demand. Over time, this can result in slower job creation, reduced incomes, and higher poverty rates in some regions. The impact on global growth highlights the far-reaching consequences of trade conflicts. Developing countries often face unique challenges during trade wars. Many rely heavily on exports for economic growth and may lack the resources to support affected industries. Trade barriers can limit access to foreign markets, reduce export earnings, and slow development progress. These challenges can exacerbate poverty and inequality, making it even harder for developing nations to achieve sustainable growth. Trade wars can erode consumer confidence as people worry about rising prices, job security, and economic uncertainty. When consumers feel less confident, they may cut back on spending, which can further slow economic growth. This feedback loop can make it harder for economies to recover from trade conflicts, highlighting the importance of stability and predictability in international trade. Small businesses are often less able to absorb the costs and disruptions caused by trade wars. Higher input prices, reduced export opportunities, and increased regulatory complexity can threaten their survival. Unlike large corporations, small firms may lack the resources to adapt quickly or find new markets. Supporting small businesses during trade conflicts is crucial for maintaining economic diversity and resilience. Trade wars often lead to higher prices for consumer goods, from electronics to groceries. As tariffs increase the cost of imported products, retailers may pass these costs on to shoppers. Over time, this can reduce purchasing power and force consumers to make difficult choices about what to buy. The impact on everyday goods underscores how trade wars affect people's daily lives. Cope with trade wars, many companies seek to diversify their supply chains. This means sourcing materials and components from multiple countries to reduce dependence on any single market. While diversification can improve resilience, it also requires investment and careful planning. The process can be complex and time-consuming, but it's an important strategy for managing risk in a volatile trade environment. Governments often step in to support industries and workers affected by trade wars. This can include financial aid, subsidies, or tax breaks for struggling sectors. While these measures can provide temporary relief, they may also distort markets and create long-term challenges. Balancing short-term support with long-term competitiveness is a key policy challenge during trade conflicts. International organizations like the World Trade Organization, WTO, play a critical role in managing trade disputes. They provide forums for negotiation, set rules for fair trade, and help resolve conflicts. However, their effectiveness depends on the willingness of countries to cooperate and abide by international agreements. Strengthening these institutions is essential for preventing and resolving trade wars. Long-term effects of trade wars can be profound. Persistent barriers to trade can reduce economic efficiency, slow innovation, and limit growth opportunities. Over time, countries may become less competitive globally, and consumers may face fewer choices and higher prices. Understanding these long-term risks is crucial for policymakers and business leaders alike. Trade wars can stifle innovation by limiting access to new technologies, markets, and talent. Companies may be less willing to invest in research and development if they face uncertain returns or restricted market access. This can slow the pace of technological progress and reduce the benefits of globalization. Encouraging innovation despite trade barriers is a key challenge for modern economies. As trade wars persist, consumers often adapt by seeking alternatives or changing their buying habits. This might mean switching to locally produced goods, delaying purchases, or prioritizing essential items. While adaptation can help mitigate some impacts, it may also lead to reduced variety and higher costs. The way consumers respond to trade wars shapes the broader economic landscape. Trade wars often cause trade diversion, where countries shift their imports and exports to avoid tariffs. This can benefit some nations while hurting others, depending on their position in global supply chains. Trade diversion can also lead to inefficiencies and higher costs as companies adjust their sourcing and distribution strategies. Understanding these effects is important for grasping the full impact of trade conflicts. Trade wars can lead to significant currency fluctuations as investors react to changing economic conditions. A weaker currency can make exports more competitive but also raise the cost of imports. These shifts can create winners and losers within an economy, affecting everything from tourism to manufacturing. Managing currency risk is a key challenge for businesses during trade conflicts. Trade wars can have significant political consequences, both domestically and internationally. Leaders may use trade conflicts to rally support or distract from other issues, but prolonged disputes can erode public trust and strain alliances. Political instability can further complicate efforts to resolve trade wars, making it even more important to find diplomatic solutions. Trade wars can also impact the environment. Changes in trade patterns may lead to increased emissions if goods are sourced from farther away or produced less efficiently. On the other hand, some countries may use trade barriers to promote environmentally friendly practices. Balancing economic and environmental goals is a complex challenge during trade conflicts. Trade wars can change how consumers feel about foreign products. Nationalistic sentiment may rise, leading people to favor domestic goods over imports. This shift in consumer sentiment can influence market trends and shape the strategies of businesses and policymakers. Understanding these psychological effects is important for predicting the long-term impact of trade conflicts. Trade wars often prompt countries to renegotiate existing agreements or seek new deals. These negotiations can be complex and time-consuming, involving multiple stakeholders and competing interests. Successful agreements can help reduce tensions and restore stability, but reaching consensus is not always easy. The outcome of trade negotiations can shape the global economic landscape for years to come. Trade wars can disrupt international investment flows as companies reassess the risks and rewards of operating in different markets. Uncertainty about future trade policies may cause firms to delay or cancel planned investments. This can slow economic growth and reduce opportunities for job creation and innovation. Stable trade relations are essential for encouraging cross-border investment. Trade wars can reduce consumer welfare by raising prices, limiting choices, and slowing economic growth. While some industries may benefit from protection, the overall effect is often negative for consumers. Policymakers must weigh these trade-offs when designing trade policies to ensure that the benefits outweigh the costs. Tariffs and trade barriers can contribute to inflation by raising the cost of imported goods. As prices rise, central banks may need to adjust interest rates to keep inflation in check. Higher inflation can erode purchasing power and complicate economic management, making it an important consideration during trade conflicts. Trade wars can slow or even reverse the process of globalization by encouraging countries to turn inward. Reduced trade and investment flows can limit the spread of ideas, technology, and culture. While some argue that protecting domestic industries is necessary, others warn that isolation can lead to stagnation and missed opportunities. During trade wars, governments may introduce consumer protection policies to shield citizens from rising prices or shortages. These policies can include price controls, subsidies, or import quotas. While well-intentioned, such measures can sometimes create new problems, such as black markets or reduced product quality. Balancing protection with market efficiency is a key policy challenge. Innovation can suffer during trade wars as companies face higher costs, reduced market access, and increased uncertainty. Firms may cut back on research and development or delay the launch of new products. This can slow technological progress and reduce the benefits of competition. Encouraging innovation despite trade barriers is essential for long-term growth. Trade wars can exacerbate poverty, especially in developing countries that rely on exports for income and employment. Reduced access to foreign markets can lead to job losses and lower incomes, making it harder for vulnerable populations to escape poverty. Addressing these social impacts is an important part of managing trade conflicts. Trade wars can increase economic inequality by disproportionately affecting certain industries, regions, or groups. While some sectors may benefit from protection, others may suffer significant losses. Policymakers must consider the distributional effects of trade policies to ensure that the benefits are shared broadly across society. Trade wars can affect public health by disrupting the supply of medicines, medical equipment, and food. Tariffs and trade barriers can make it harder to access essential goods, leading to shortages or higher prices. Ensuring the availability of critical supplies is a key concern during trade conflicts, especially in times of crisis. Education can also be affected by trade wars, especially when international collaboration or access to technology is restricted. Students and researchers may face barriers to studying abroad or participating in global projects. These limitations can slow the exchange of knowledge and hinder scientific progress. Tourism can suffer during trade wars as travel restrictions, currency fluctuations, and economic uncertainty reduce the number of international visitors. Destinations that rely on foreign tourists may see declines in revenue and employment. Promoting tourism during trade conflicts requires creative strategies and international cooperation. Cultural exchange can be hindered by trade wars, as restrictions on goods, services, and travel limit opportunities for people to learn from each other. This can reduce mutual understanding and make it harder to build trust between nations. Encouraging cultural exchange despite trade barriers is important for fostering global cooperation. Food security can be threatened by trade wars, especially in countries that rely on imports for essential staples. Tariffs and barriers can disrupt supply chains, leading to shortages or price spikes. Ensuring access to affordable, nutritious food is a critical challenge during trade conflicts, requiring coordinated policy responses. Resolving trade wars requires negotiation, compromise, and a willingness to find common ground. Diplomatic efforts, international mediation, and new trade agreements can help de-escalate tensions and restore stability. The process can be complex and time-consuming, but the benefits of peace and cooperation are well worth the effort. Conclusion: trade wars have far-reaching impacts on economies, businesses, and individuals around the world. While they may offer short-term protection for some industries, the long-term costs often outweigh the benefits. Understanding the causes and consequences of trade wars is essential for making informed decisions and promoting global prosperity. By working together, countries can find solutions that benefit everyone and build a more stable, interconnected world.